good sis.
I need to introduce you so people have a little reference for who you are, because this is, guys, this is Brent Loya, aka Styles Bentley, aka the Sultan of Silliness, aka the Chapus King himself, Brentius O Maximus, O Daddy Yankee, oh hi there, silly boy. He is probably, I think it's safe to say that you have been and definitely were the ringleader of our group of best friends growing up. I'd like to say that you and I partaked in
I was
those.
gonna say, I think you might be me.
I mean,
Stereotypically to the group.
Let's not get down to brass tacks. We
Right.
both
silly boys.
held the crown for the ringleader of this group of silly boys. You certainly were. I mean, I could put myself in this category too, but the wildest, the craziest. And I'm only saying this to say that now, at the tender age of 34 years old, you have become a father of 3 girls, and it's almost like this, like, it's incredible how it all happened that way, because I don't have any kids. Like, most of our friends have kids now and stuff, and it's pretty normal, but you have the most.
Right.
You have 3, and they're all girls.
Right.
And I've said it a bunch of times before to our friends, but I watch all of our friends with children and with their marriages and all that stuff. And as a guy who's single and without kids, I always wonder, like, am I going to have kids? Am I going to get married? Is this going to be something in my life? And I look at all my friends, and nobody is ever selling me on marriage and or children except for you. Yeah. With your kids, I watch you play with your kids. I watch you, like, go on slip and slide rides in your backyard. You have 18 dogs, you have 19 children, and you somehow make it work so well. Like, you're not like excessively wealthy in finances with your life, and you don't like have this huge epic, like, it's like, I think in my life I'm like, oh, I need to have like bajillion dollars to take care of kids and have fun and not have to nanny and not have to do this. I just need to be retired and be completely committed to my life. But I watch you do it, and I'm like, holy shit, Brentius has figured out a way to transition the silly boy lifestyle that he had when he was a youngster and completely apply that to his fatherhood, to your ability to take care of your kids. And you're the only person, man, that I see that I envy as a dad. Nobody else is selling me on it. What do you do?
That. I was gonna say, I'm not sure of what I do specifically to be successful at this, and I think that's just like anything that you're passionate about. You definitely feel personally more failure than success, but that's kind of the purpose, right? Like the journey is more important than the destination. But with kids, man, it's like, dude, like, I've come to old, like, you start to look back at your parents and even your friends' parents, and you like, all these epiphanies come about. Like, for instance, I think as a dad, it's like my dad was always, I think, notated by our friends and other people like as a really easygoing dude. And I think a lot of dads are kind of like that. And it's not by choice, man. It's by, like, you have to be. Like, you have to find that patience. And then you have to, like, also step out of, like, this, I am an adult and I have these, this knowledge and wisdom and experience. My child has none. Like, I always am thinking about, like, not creating biases and always, like, exploring imagination. So it's like being a silly boy. I think, like, being a silly boy, man, that's like common for Julian and I. If it sounds funny to you out there in listening land, but being a silly boy, that's like our epicenter. When we were younger, it was a little more debaucherous, and and that, but it had the same essence. Like, we weren't ever trying to be destructive. We were just trying to like reach the limits of imagination, or to find if there were any. And with kids, I think it's just like my imagination now is so perplexed by theirs and understanding their growth, and it's just like, even my daughter Amelia, the oldest, she like had a friend over. This was a month or two ago, and they were eating a snack at the table, and I like said something from the kitchen, like "da-ba-da-bee-bee," like, who knows what I said, and she just leans over to her friend, goes, "My dad's pretty silly."
How proud does that make you feel?
Dude, I was like, yes, good, good.
Yeah,
Like, and the other part of me is just like, by the time they hit 10, like, that could be out the window at least for a number of years. Like, it could be from
right.
the like, let's be crazy with dad, to like, dad, like, get out of the way. So I don't know, man. I think that I just always try to be fun. Like, obviously, you have to have like structure, you have to have routine, you have to have all the stuff that mom, whips you into shape for and keeps us in order. Shout out to
Right.
all the moms, man. Moms,
Shout out
fuck.
moms.
Oh my
God,
God, moms, dude. Dads have
they're
it easy. I got it easy. I'm the facilitator. They're the maestro.
I just like have so much respect for parents, and I think even for you, like I think it will be. I think it will go down in the history books. It'll be notated about like the new parents of the pandemic who were going through this like while trying to raise these kids. And I know you went through like a huge uh period of time where you were like really struggling because you were trying to find like a new situation for your work, and
Right.
like it's just like it's and just having you had two kids at the time, but you've basically like created a COVID baby
Yeah,
during that period.
definitely COVID baby
um
for sure.
and it's so funny, man, because I remember when you like I remember the video that you have shown us as friends, when 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 Rachel told you that she was pregnant for the first time. And like your response to that is so genuine and awesome. Brent just Rachel's just like, hey, we're having a baby, and she has him on like the phone video, and it's like it has the phone set up like in the corner of the room, and Brent just looks at her just like with these eyes that just widen and become huge. And he's just like, what the fuck are we gonna do? And it's just like, it's not like, oh no, or like happy day or anything. It's just like, what are we gonna do?
Yeah,
What are we gonna do? And I feel like that's so honest and so just real, like especially when it wasn't like you guys were like, okay, here's when we're going to have a kid, here's how we're going to do it, here's how it's all going to work out. It was like, some people are intentional about that stuff, but it seems like it kind of happened for you guys, happily so. But
right,
it was just like such a shock, and I'll never forget that
dude.
video and that moment of you expressing yourself that way. It was so good, man.
Dude, it was yeah, like, wife, then girlfriend. We moved to Florida. She was going to school for midwifery, and I had finished my associate's degree at Bellevue College for interior design, and I was like, kind of, and coming off of like some cool art projects in Seattle and design
Hmm.
projects. So I was like feeling like a pretty big chip on my shoulder, like, I'm gonna move to Florida, I'm gonna get a surfboard, I'm gonna make some art, I'm gonna get a good job, we're gonna just like be the master. And yeah, shit did not go down that way, man. I was driving Uber, I was working at Starbucks, I was trying to get back into doing online classes to go towards a bachelor's degree, like. And then all of a sudden, and my girlfriend at the time, who, we lived together and whatnot, and moved across the country together. I come home, and come home from work at Starbucks one night, and she tells me she's pregnant, and like you said, like, earlier, like, if you feel like you got to have $1 million to have a baby, and you got to be set
Yeah.
up, and you got to be ready, it's like, I was still driving my 97 Toyota Camry, like that, barely got down the road. And, we had, next month's bills in the bank, but nothing past that. And yeah, it was scary, and then,
Yeah, man.
And yeah, it's just like, so I don't know. It's like, now that I'm saying that, it's like, I feel like since in the last 4.5, let's just say 5 years, uh, yeah, have grown so much personally, professionally, and I don't know, maybe that was the catalyst. Like maybe if that never happened, like who knows? I'd be freaking like still in Florida, like waving a Trump flag or something.
Oh my God. I don't think you could ever do that, but you were around that stuff quite often, weren't you?
Well, Florida style, man, and that's the stereotype, like coming from like especially the Pacific Northwest, right? Is that it's Trump country, which the area that I was in was more so than not. But I think Florida, and I've said this for a number of years, maybe it's changing a little bit now, but I always thought Florida was actually a really good representation of our actual country because it really is more of a 50-50 kind of political split there. You have cities like Miami that are international and then you have cities like Jacksonville, which was I was closer, which is kind of like the South, like South Georgia, almost.
Hmm.
And so you have a really interesting dichotomy. And I always say how like us in the Northwest or New York or people in the U.S. look at like Florida and Florida man is how the world looks at the United States.
Mm.
And so I thought being in Florida, once we had kids, we wanted to raise them in the Northwest, like back where we were raised, plus our family's up around here. We think it's a good place to raise a family,
Yeah.
comparatively to Florida. But I actually have like extremely fond memories of being in Florida, man. I lived a half a mile from the beach, and my rent was less than $1,000 a month. Like,
Wow.
I mean, it was retirement too early. So, but yeah, it was a strange land out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy. I remember coming to your wedding out there in St. Augustine. That was the best, man.
Dude,
That was such a beautiful place, and I'd
yeah,
never been there. So I,
love
I don't
Saint.
know. I think
Big,
I think Florida definitely gets a bad rap, but
yeah, big shout out to St. Augustine. I loved St. Augustine. What a cool city, good people. Actually, shout out to St. Augustine Distillery. Worked
shout
there for a
out.
little bit. Really good people, man. Treated me well. Yeah, man. So Florida was a good time, but yeah, made it back here, and then yeah, it was we moved back to Seattle. We're renting a place in Columbia City. Bought a house in Tacoma,
Tacoma.
and 2 weeks after we moved into our new house, Lottie was born. That was August of 2019. So then we have a newborn at home. So we're kind of at home. We're kind of homebodies, like new baby. Then, right around to the top of 2020, then COVID hits. Um, so then we're in COVID quarantine, basically right after Lottie's first birthday, August of 2020. So still pretty thick in COVID. I mean, fuck, we still are. It's August 2021, but
Right.
then we find out she's pregnant, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like it's like I feel like since Amelia was born, we've never had a moment to like settle in. It's always go, go, go. And I think I was kind of like venting about it the other day, and Boyle, who's been on the podcast and one of our Chapistry guidance counselors, he was like, yeah, but you wouldn't really be happy if you weren't. Like, you are go, go, go. If
Yeah.
you didn't have that, if you had that moment, you wouldn't take it. You'd get up and start doing something else. And I was like, yeah, that's
Yeah. I
absolutely
wonder what that would be, man. I wonder because like I say it a lot to you, and I don't say it like out of any other way, but besides coming from love. But like I feel like you should be the one in New York pursuing a career as an actor, and I wonder like if you because just for context for the people listening, like you are by far the most creative, like not just like creative, like I don't like your creativity transcends like the idea of creativity in general for me. It's like you made music, you've been a painter, you've been a digital artist, you've been a rapper, a singer, a musician, an actor, all sorts. You've hit the gamut of creativity, and it seems so open ended in my opinion when I watch you and when I've seen you and your ability to kind of just like exist in the world as a creative and as like this free spirited and seemingly like overly confident vessel who can just like do anything. uh I always kind of am just like, obviously you had kids and you had to create a life that would provide for your children. So going and like frolicking through New York as a as a wannabe actor like me
Is that,
is
is that your daily
was
frolicking through the city?
yeah, dude, I'm frolicking through the 119-degree weather right now,
Woo.
sweating my dick off.
Mm,
um but I always wonder, man, like what, and I'm sure you've thought about it. I mean, I know that you still uh you know express yourself creatively and do certain things for yourself that satiate that creative itch for you. But uh like I wonder, man, like it does no good to be like, oh well, if I didn't have kids, where would I be? But
right.
do you like foresee yourself kind of like getting back into like hugely getting back into your creative life at some point, and like making like big strides there? Or are you kind of like figuring out how to create creative strides in the work that you're now doing?
I
um
mean, yeah, a little all of the above. I mean, how I think of it now, and I mean, I don't mean to be cocky about this or anything, but I've always been good or really good at like anything I try. But
yeah.
I feel I've never been great at anything.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
feel like even in like sports in high school, I was always like one of the best. But I
Yeah.
was never like a T Snide. I was never a Craig Chambers. I
Right.
was never, those are our high school hero sports players. But yeah,
Yeah.
I was never that top person. And I feel like, then art was kind of the same way. It was like I had really good concepts, I had really good ideas, I had good pieces. I really feel like I'm a I'm a really good songwriter, I feel like, and I'm a really great performer, and I have a lot of charisma. But even like if Alan, for instance, he walks in the room and he has an unmistakable talent
Yeah.
of great
Right.
his
This
voice.
like undeniably inherent
Right.
gift.
And I've never had that level. So I think it was like I never had a problem taking a chance, and I loved taking on the challenge. I think more than that, I also loved being the leader of things. So I would really do that. I'd really grasp things as like a leader. But I loved the challenge of doing all these things. Yeah, acting, playing in a band, writing music, being in plays, all that type of stuff. But I never picked one. Like I feel like you did the same thing. You were a rapper, you were a musician, you were an artist, you were everything. We've all done the same things, but you kind of found your medium in acting, right? And Alan found his medium, obviously, in music as a singer. And I feel like I never really found my medium. And maybe I had, and I just, I don't know. I just maybe I and that's my dilemma, right? Is like I'll tell myself, like, especially when I was going to college, it's like, dial in, become an expert. Like, you need to become
Yeah.
an expert at this one thing. But then another side of me is like, why? Why not
Right.
try and do all these other things?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I feel like that's where I've been. And now that my kids, like Amelia, is going to start going to school and they're getting out of that, they need your dad all the time. Like I do feel like a little bit more of an air of finding my personal self again. Um, and and yeah, so I don't. I guess to go all the way back to your question of like, am I working on anything or do I plan on it? Like absolutely,
Right.
but like I can't say like I'm working on a fully creative art project. I think in my professional life now it is very interesting because it's becoming I'd say a large portion of the work I'm doing right now is extremely creative, design based. That will ebb and flow a little bit, but in the work I've been doing, I think I have been like falling back in love with design a little bit. Um,
Cool.
so yeah, so it's I always say it on a stylesbentley.com if you would like to peruse
Check
my
it out.
works. You know, I
Hell yeah, you
say
should.
kind of like I don't know if you call it a tagline or whatnot, but kind of like a words of wisdom of what I think of life as is a life is a creative journey. You know,
Yeah,
so it's like um, I hope that I'm creating, whether it's personal or professional, you know, to the last moment that I have a conscious to create from.
yeah,
So that's a part of it too. Is it's at this point, it's not where maybe when I was 20 years old, it was about being a rock star, being you know, somebody, right? Being
right,
known, being influential, right?
right,
And now I'm like, I'm a little more okay being behind the scenes. Like, yeah, that desire to be influential is obviously there. I think any artist kind of has a little bit of that ego in them, right? But uh, but I'm a little more okay with like I don't have to be Styles Bentley in front of it all. Like I can
right,
be producing in the background. I can be directing in the background. I can have the edge and the leadership that makes me happy, the creative outlet that makes me happy. But I don't have to be the one on stage to do it. Although
right.
that'd be fun too.
Totally, and I think you will be, man. And I think
Right.
it's really admirable because for somebody who really did, uh, like single out my own creativity to follow in acting. Uh, and I think just like Alan, I think Alan can attest to this too. Uh, in really like staying in a lane and being like, okay, this is where I'm gonna go. This is how I'm
Right.
gonna do it. It as soon as it becomes your job, as soon as it becomes like your life and your livelihood and your identity more so than anything,
Hmm.
it can be really hindering, man.
Oh yeah.
It can really like conflict with what the reason for having gotten into it to begin with was and is. And I find myself conflicted by that a lot where I mean, don't get me wrong, I am obsessed with acting. I think it's the most fun thing that I've ever been able to do. And it's definitely where I want to be.
Hmm.
But man, the business of acting, the 98% of the job is soul sucking, draining. Like, it makes me feel awful at times. And it's like now I've been in New York for 10 years and I've invested so much of my time and energy into this thing that I'm like, well, I mean, I'm grateful that I have, but like I also can't really go back. I can do whatever I want, but I don't really want to. And I think to 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 your point of where you're kind of at in your life, it's again just like you with your kids, like kind of enviable, man, because you kind of see your art more now as a hobby and probably have a better appreciation for it than if it were like your main priority and like part of and like needing to be your identity. And I think I get wrapped up in my uh, self worth
Hmm.
uh, attaching itself to like the product of my success as an actor or
Hmm.
as a creative. And god damn it, dude, like it's so that's a never ending cycle of
Right.
bullshit if I allow myself to go down that. um and you spiral and you're just like, Jesus, man, like I'm not nearly as far as I thought I'd be. And why didn't I just like take that stupid little degree that I had and go do something more, logical with that? But then I'm like, on the same thought, like, shut up, Julian. Like, this is
Right.
what you're doing. This is what you chose to do. And, you should be so grateful to have been able to last this long doing it and continue to
Right.
thrive. But I think it's just so interesting how we all kind of like navigate and take different avenues down through life, and how you and I, spent every waking moment together when we were growing up, from like, probably eighth grade through like, senior year of high school. We were like inseparable, just
Yeah.
hanging out, freestyling, painting, drawing, like being
My
and
mom
and we
still
were
wouldn't let me spend the night though.
I know you're my. I still find it so funny that your mom was an etiquette coach, and you were like, I mean, when you needed to be, you were very well mannered, but just as a default, none of us had manners, dude. We were not trying to be well mannered kids at all. But we were so eager, man. And I've had this conversation with you before, and I'd love to dive back into it because you and I especially were so eager to be something, to like be like to like be shining, and to be like front and center, and to be like, the and it wasn't because we were like so like such egomaniacs that we like
Mm,
needed that attention. We just like inherently knew that like people people were elevated by like that type of presentation when we were able to like excuse me, get crazy and like show up to a party and like act like absolute fucking maniacs. People really got a lot of joy out of that. And I think for me, I really started to burn out where I was like, I didn't realize that I had any level of introversion in my life. I
right,
only thought I was an extrovert.
right,
So much so that I was just like, I need to make people happy. I need to show up. That this party doesn't exist unless I'm here, unless me and Styles Bentley are here. And growing up, and in retrospect, you're like, oh, that's actually not true at all. Like we definitely, had like we definitely contributed to those times and made people happy and had a great time when we would show up to those things. But I think I learned later on in life that like whether or not I show up to these things, like they're gonna happen
right.
one way or another. Like we don't have anything to do with that, and nobody's actually really thinking about us. And I just had this really humbling moment with like my own ego at one point. I think just like moving out to LA and realizing that like, oh, I am not as awesome as I thought I was. And then having to like come back to being like, no, I actually am as awesome as I think I am. I'm just not awesome in the way that I expected myself to be.
Right,
Uh, because it was really hard for me to turn off back in the day, man. And I think you and
right.
I just fueled each other. We were
Oh,
like, dude,
absolutely.
let's go. Like, who can go harder? And it wasn't anything that like we weren't ever in competition with each other. We
No,
were just
no.
like just com- combusting all the time, just like
Right,
fueling, and just like exploding it at every time. And I just wonder, like, now that you're a father and like now that you've kind of been able to apply those like that part of your identity to being a dad, like do you look back on that time and feel like, God, I was like so I exerted so much like unnecessary energy? Or are you just like, no, you know what, like that definitely like added value to who I now am as a person? And are
right,
you like grateful for that? Because I certainly burned out, man, and I think that was important for me to do, but it took me a long time to figure that out for
right.
myself.
I think yeah, I burned out too, but in a different way. But like when I actually now as an adult and the, people that I've met through being an adult, I feel like 90+% of the time, if you talk about like high school with people you meet as adults who you never went to high school with, um, the typical response is like, I hated high school, or high school
Yeah,
sucked. Da, da.
yeah,
Dude, when I look back and think about high school, and granted, yeah, I can dial into negative moments, coming of age, all those sorts of things that were difficult, but dude, I had a blast, dude.
yeah,
Like I
same.
had so much fun.
Yeah,
Middle school and high school, like so much fun. So like thinking about it, like, yeah, I think the only thing I remember being annoyed when it was just like, oh, hey, this is Brent. Say something funny. And it's just
yeah,
like,
right.
go fuck yourself. Like,
Yeah, there's an
I say funny
expectation.
things when it happens. But I think my like check and balance and reset was when we graduated high school. I went to ASU for a year and actually moved to Tempe, Arizona. And I show up to the dorm orientation, and this is kind of, I mean, like Julian's saying, we're fun-loving guys. We're friends with everyone, popular kids, no enemies,
Mhm.
at least that we knew of. Like
Yeah,
we didn't have any,
there were
right?
certainly some kids like in the back of the class that were like trying to kill us.
Yeah, probably, yeah. but but I mean, we like and I'm sure we were. inadvertently assholes to people, but I know we never wanted to be. We were never trying to be. Anyway, so I go to ASU, and in my head, I'm I'm having this whole like fantasy of kind of not recreating myself, but reintroduce. Like I can be anyone I want to be. Nobody knows me, and we already created like our personas of the tapestry, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get there, I go to my first like the dorm orientation, like the first day everyone moves into the dorms, and I'm wearing a cut off in sync shirt. And just that's it, a cut off in
Right.
sync shirt with shorts
It's a
on and
hot
shoes.
look.
Yeah. And dude, I mean, people were just like, who is this guy? Like, who is this strange cookie?
Yeah.
And at ASU, I kind of at going to a big college. I was a party school. The weather was great. I wasn't there for school. I was there for the experience, right? Whether or not I knew that at the time, but yeah, I was totally an outcast. I had I think like I had began everyone kind of begins with a big group of friends because everyone's trying to meet, but I think by the end of that first year of college, which I dropped out of afterwards, yeah, I only had like really two or three friends, like, and that was crazy for me, like.
Yeah.
And I was kind of this weird kid. I mean, one of my best friends was my neighbor who was a gay kid, and then my other best friend was just like a super stoner, and we'd sit in his room and literally like just get stoned and listen to the entire Beatles anthology, the entire Led
Nice.
Zeppelin anthology.
Yeah.
Like talk about introverted shit. We'd sit in a
Yeah.
dorm room for 12 hours listening to music. My other friend, who was gay, and I was always a flamboyant dresser, and we'd go hang out. I mean, we would get harassed. I got fucking jumped and kicked in
Yeah. I
the
was gonna
face.
say
The
you
fuck
got your
up.
ass kicked,
Yeah,
didn't you?
because of people calling me a faggot,
Yeah.
and me sticking up for that, and and so it's just like the things that I would do at home that I would be celebrated, I'd be put on people's shoulders
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
At ASU, I was getting called a faggot and run out of
Yeah.
parties and fucking kicked in the face. And it was like, I remember coming home and just being so confused. I like I life the what I had grasped on as like life like was totally askew and
Right.
relief. And I remember that night I got in that fight, basically I got jumped, and it was
Yeah.
like an adrenaline. Like I don't even remember it. I remember like guys chasing me out of the house party. I'm like speed walking out of there. Like next thing I know, I'm running to jump in dudes like the back of this truck to get out of there. Like I don't remember anything. Plus, I had been drinking too, and
Right.
so I that night I had called my mom because one of the other people in the dorm actually called the police, and I filed a police report and whatever. But I called my mom, and I was like in tears and da, 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 da. And my mom calls me back the next morning, and she goes, I got your message, and are are you saying that you're gay?" I was like, "It's like no, mom."
I'm saying I got jumped because I was wearing an NSYNC shirt and
I
everybody
got
thought I
jumped
was
because they
gay,
thought I was
and I
gay.
stuck up for the gays.
You can pray, yeah, you can pray on whatever you want on that, but anyway, like, yeah, no,
Yeah.
no like negativity towards my mom,
Right. Right.
but
Right. Right.
it
Right.
was it was just even in that extent was just like, what, like that's not the point, like who cares,
Yeah.
who gives a
Right.
fuck, like what. uh
Yeah.
so that was, I think, the turning point, like coming home after living in ASU. Plus then the second half of being at ASU, man, like now that we're on the subject, like the first half was like drugs and alcohol, trying to figure it out, like being this new outcast that I've never been before. And then the second half, I come home for winter break, come back for the second semester. And man, that's the first time in my life that I really felt anxiety.
You were just removed from your tribe,
Right,
and
right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
it's so interesting because it's such a testament to like the environment that you grow up in and how you kind of mold yourself around that when you're growing up. Because had any of us lived in different areas or had never met each other, if I had never met you and you me, we would have been definitely different, man. So
Probably.
different.
Yeah.
And I want, like, if we grew up in any other place other than Mill Creek, Washington, didn't go to the same high school, and didn't have like the tribe that we grew up with, like, I think back on high school too, and I'm like, man, I had a blast. We were like these, popular kids, not because we were even necessarily trying to, just because we were enjoying ourselves, and
Right.
people were gravitating towards that. And uh, it is interesting that because I remember, like, one of our friends who you mentioned earlier, Travis Snyder, he's a professional baseball player, and I remember he was like, baseball to him in high school was like t-ball.
Right.
It's just like it's just like he was hitting home runs every time he got up to the plate.
Right.
So I remember he got drafted out of high school, and like, made a bunch of money and went to the pros like right out of high school.
Mhm.
And I remember it being like, oh, this is the first time baseball is hard for him, because
Right.
now he's in the pros. Now he's in this new environment where like everybody's good and
Mhm.
everybody's doing this thing. And uh that's just like, you get into these different tribes, and you get into these new environments of different people, and people that don't get you, especially when you're as charismatic as you are, or like I am. I remember coming out to New York when I first moved out here, and I had done a couple movies before I came out. I felt like I was on top of the world. I had some money
Mhm.
in my pocket. I was like, I'm going to this school that's paying for me to be there because they're going to like make me their poster child. I'm like, dude, I'm going to be the next Brad Pitt, dude. I am the fucking man. The stars have aligned, and JP Grimace is here to thrive, baby.
Mhm.
And I remember just coming out here and like, and trying to kind of like leverage that experience of myself, and being like, I'm awesome. Like, I wasn't running around telling everybody I was awesome, but I was like, I remember just like buying all my friendships and taking like all these young kids that I was going to this acting conservatory with out to the bar, and trying to like be super awesome by like spending these like extravagant amounts of money on like tabs that these 18-year-olds were taking advantage of. And I was like, oh my god, I'm the man. I've been in this, I've done that. And ultimately, I think I made a couple like strong friendships, but overall it was just like, oh, nobody actually like really appreciates me. But I think ultimately, like, I don't really appreciate myself in this situation,
Right.
because I'm away from that group of people that I grew up with. And I think something that's like, it's so weird, because I know that there are so many groups of people in the world that are like as close of friends as we are with our group of friends.
Right.
And it's easy to be like, oh, we have this like very exceptional group of people. I just don't know how to like elaborate on what our friendship actually means, outside of just having like people that are listening right now actually come and spend time in a room with us when we're like doing invisible double dutch, dancing our fucking asses off, crowd surfing through the room on a Tuesday, just like going so crazy and just smiling and loving and like celebrating life to the fullest extent. I remember kids would come over to our house again on like a Tuesday night. Back when Alan was living with us, you were all of us had this Chapus Wu house,
Mhm.
which we can dive into a little bit as well. And we would have these parties, like after an Alan show, and we would come home and all these kids would come back from the show, or it wasn't even a show. You guys would have a show. Del Simpleweight, your guys' band, you and Boyle and Larry Blake, shout out. We would come home and we would just like throw down, and people would leave giving us like these epic hugs. It's like, that was the greatest night of my life.
Dude.
And they were serious. And it was
Well,
just like, dude, this is just Tuesday, you
well,
know?
it's pretty funny because I know you and Al have talked about this and gotten into, like mindfulness and meditation as an extent. But I think when we're right around like end of high school, I think I coined the definition of Chapus Wu as a lifestyle that enriches silliness and rambunctiousness to the fullest extent. And and really, like what you are describing right now, and granted it was fueled definitely by like alcohol and drugs to a certain degree. I don't think any of us were like we had our tripping balls, you know, moments, but you know, that wasn't like the daily. We were drinking and smoking some weed, and you know, nobody was going like, you know, doing
Right.
opioids and fucking shooting up crazy shit. But
Meth.
anyway, yeah, yeah. But we were totally finding that like through dancing, through singing, through freestyling, through all those silly activities, we were putting people in their flow states. We were like that catalyst, and we were doing it probably mostly for our own egos, you know, whether or
Right.
not, I know we didn't, that's not why we were doing it, but it's why we were doing it. We were fulfilling that. But I think that's why people, and well, and you're the one who's always said this about me, is that, you know, people, like 50% of people fucking love you, like
Yeah.
fucking love you, and 50% of people fucking hate you, like
Yeah.
fucking think you are
Yeah.
annoying and crazy and over
Yeah.
the top. And so I think it's just like, to me, meditation and mindfulness, like, to understand it without doing or having like psychedelic experiences to like really open up your mind, to really be able to find that, you have to be, I think, a creative, because you have to use your imagination to look beyond the self. And so we were able to do that unknowingly. We could look, we could explore and imagine outside of ourselves as these personas, as Styles Bentley and fucking, you know, Julian is like Madonna in fucking high school. Like, you say Julian, that's all you need to say, and you know who you're talking about. Like, so it was, and I wasn't Styles Bentley, I was fucking Brentius, you know. Like, but anyways,
Quarter inch.
a quarter inch, baby. So yeah, man, I think that, you know, that was something really amazing. And people really, and the people who would like come back to our parties or really be like attached to it, like, they weren't the people who partied the hardest, you know what I mean?
Right.
They were the people who, like, they drank, they smoked, they were coming to a party, but they weren't like the ones getting, you know, blacked out and naked in the tree with Tristan and Ryan, you know, like.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think one of the biggest takeaways of my youth, uh, having been spent with you and our other friends that we spent the majority of our time with, was that we fostered this ability to give people permission to break their walls down
Right,
and and express a freedom in themselves that they wouldn't otherwise be expressing had they not been in that type of environment. And I think it was just as liberating for us to to see people do that as it was for them to do it themselves.
right,
And I think we really got high off of that. And again, like, I don't want any of this to come off as like, you know, like us being these arrogant fuck boys who are just like, oh yeah, we had all these parties. Because I'm sure there's a bajillion groups of people out in the world that like have done certain similar things. But just specifically to us, it was such a valuable takeaway for me, because as I've kind of uh, approached this career and trying to figure out, like, why do I really want to do what I'm doing? Why do I really want to be an actor and live in New York and 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 you know, perform? Like, is it kind of driven by ego? Is it like this self-seeking thing that I'm doing? And sure, yes, to a
yeah,
certain degree, of course, it has to be. I'm delusional to think that I can even do this in general. But at the same time, at the root of it all, I think it it's driven by this idea that goes back to when we were kids, which is, I want to be able to give people permission to break the walls down and express themselves freely by hopefully being an example of that in myself
right,
through what I'm trying to do. Like, you know, as an actor, somebody, you know, I don't know. I think any one of our friends could be an actor. We're all going to be in movies that I write at some point. Like, every single one of you guys has a role in this shit for sure, because you're not going to have a hard time doing it.
right,
Acting is very challenging, but they're like, what I'm doing as an actor, how I practice, how I like how I get into it for myself, and the only time that I ever like recognize if I'm doing it well or not is only under the pretense that I am willing to do something, not because I'm capable or technically able to like perform. Dude, like if I'm on a movie set, a television set or whatever, there's like they put marks down for you to like stand on and hit so that you're
Yeah.
in frame and so that you can like, you know, be there. It's like it's technical, right? And it's the technical necessity of being a screen actor.
Totally.
I miss my mark every fucking time, dude. I'm just like not thinking about that technical shit. You know, when like actors are trying to like get into character and they're pulling their tools out of their toolbox to like use to like, oh, like I'm not feeling in the moment right now. I have to like utilize this skill set to get back into character. I'm just like, I have no fucking idea. I'm not that good of an actor. I'm just a person who like is willing to try to do something to really feel like I'm doing something. And that's not to be like, I'm like some Daniel Day-Lewis who's going to go like, you know, fucking live as Abraham Lincoln for 3 years of my life and to get into character by any means. I don't say that at all. But there is this like need to be like only willing to try to do something, because I think growing up with all of my best friends, including and mostly with you, I learned at a young age that like even if I'm scared shitless of like getting up right now and doing something, I know I'm capable of of the doing of it. Like
Right.
the believing, like when I remember, you know, like you and I would like get up on stages and like freestyle and like get, you know, do these things, be like, oh my God, you guys are so confident. And I was always actually nervous. Like
Oh,
in the
absolutely.
pit of my stomach, I was
Absolutely.
always like, fuck, dude,
Absolutely.
like and then that expectation started to come from you and
Right.
me, like, oh, like Julian and Brent are here, they're gonna put on a show. And you know, that just like that probably stoked our egos, but also like it kind of put the pressure on us to keep doing it. And then it was just like, oh my God, like I remember always being scared. I was like my whole high school experience, though exceptionally fun and like happy and good timed, I was nervous the entire time, dude.
Yeah.
Like I felt uncomfortable in my skin the whole time, but not for the reasons that like kids in high school feel uncomfortable in their skin. Because kids,
Right.
you know, I have acne and like, oh my God, I don't know how to talk to this girl. I don't know what to do. It was like, oh, I'm uncomfortable because I know I'm gonna show up and like turn on and like do something wild and crazy. And I think that just all kind of like bleeds back into this notion of like of living a lifestyle of silliness and being
Mhm.
willing to kind of like put yourself out there and give yourself permission to just like be free in the moment and express yourself however it feels right to do. And that was, God, that's such a valuable thing to be able to cultivate in yourself,
Yeah.
to just
Yeah.
be free.
Well, I mean,
And
especially
go
on
ahead.
like the performance level, like I mean, the saying like, right, is it if you're not nervous, it's not worth it, kind of a thing, you know? Like, have
Yeah.
you ever heard that?
Yeah, yeah,
And
totally.
so it's like I feel like the same way, like when yeah, like I was saying before, when you say high school, yeah, my first thought is like, oh, that was fun, and yeah, I can dial into like the real memories of like, yeah, I was extremely self-conscious.
Mhm.
I mean, still to this day, I think that's something that I have to recognize, you know. But having that being, it's like the nervousness, it's almost like you're stretching something, and it's like the nervousness is increasing until you break through it, right?
Yeah.
And I was just telling my wife about like a meditation experience I had, that was when I was having a lot of anxiety, panic attacks, things like that, and really got into meditation. Like like literally, that's the only way I can describe it, is that I feel like my soul was like stretching and stretching, and I was like, just I was repeating a mantra, right? And I was just fucking never been so fucking dialed into anything. Like, cause I'm sitting there like
Mm.
literally my heart's about to explode with anxiety, and I'm stretching, and boom, it like pops through and like
Wow.
chills and hey, you know, this like whole epiphany. But I think that's a very extreme kind of relation to what we were doing, we were breaking that mold. And potentially, like you're saying, if we didn't put ourselves in that place of like, look at me, and then we didn't have that pressure of do more, do you did that, do some more,
Mhm.
you know, if we didn't have that, so there, it's just such a fucking strange life and that we live of like balancing these natures of society and whatever like in our lives, this whole balance. And like you're saying, like, you know, this like this cockiness of like being an actor, right? Like you have to, dude, like you have to have a certain, you know, maybe not the right word, but level of arrogance, like when you walk into a fucking audition that you're gonna kill it, dude, you know, like you can't
Mhm.
walk into an audition like,
All timid and shit.
maybe yeah, yeah, because like you said, whether or not whatever you're acting, you know, what, you know, whether you're that Daniel Day Lewis type actor, or whether you're just you walk in and flip a switch, you're a Joey Tribbiani actor, you know, like however you do it, you need that confidence, right? And it just in like in any work, like you have to have a level of confidence. Confidence is like your ego. Your ego is separate from yourself, but to be successful in the society and the world we've created, we have to use our ego to get to these places, because if we were separated from that, we wouldn't be able to survive, because we couldn't, you know, we couldn't go to the grocery store to buy things to eat and this and that. So we need, it's like this whole fucked up like, well, how
Yeah.
do I find any real balance, you know, unless I do go live in a monastery, you know?
Mhm.
And then, you know, I think like, well, if I lived in a monastery, I'd be so upset because I'm not being creative, I'm not outputting,
Right.
and I feel like I need that as a balance. So it's, I think being a creative, at least again, you can come back to the fucking silliness, man. And
Yep.
what the silliness really is never putting a single boundary on your imagination. Like, and if you, you know, if you can do that, I don't think you'll become like a Buddha or enlightened, but I think that you'll be happier, and that you'll do things that you're happier about, that you're prouder of, and you'll go to bed at night every day knowing that you didn't hold back. Like you use your imagination to let this life and this world and your essence be everything that it is, everything that you don't know, you know. We believe that we are who we are because of our thoughts, but where are those thoughts coming from? You know, are they coming from our experiences? Where did the how did those experiences happen? You know, were they ran like our experience of being friends together? Was that fucking, I mean, how can it not be, to me, just random excellence, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just like you guys get, who knows, who knows, but it's yeah, if you got to work on that balance, but don't create a boundary, and you're going to keep moving forward, you know. Yeah, you're going to get to producing those movies starring Styles Bentley and
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
freaking Nikki P and
Yeah.
fucking
Well,
all
there's
those
no
other.
reason why you guys haven't been in our fucking silly ass movies that we've already made, because we're at the same place as us. But I'm interested in like your take on what we're talking about right now with like, you know, not having boundaries, you know,
Right.
and letting yourself kind of go, because at the age of 35 for me, I am just starting to learn boundaries. And
Dude,
like I think it's, you know, just as important. I mean, we're talking about balance, but like, you know, I think being like a boundaryless person my whole life has been hugely beneficial for me.
right.
But as I'm getting older and I'm, you know, becoming more responsible for myself and for my well-being, shit, dude, like being boundaryless is fucking exhausting too.
Well, yeah, and you can't technically, because, like you said, we all have to like survive, and we're so accustomed to the luxuries of our modern world, and to get those luxuries, we have to use, you know, these different degrees of staying within the boundaries, you know.
Right.
So yeah, it's obviously a balance. I'm just fucking spitballing with you and talking about it
Yeah,
like
no, I know.
brother.
It's just like
So
it's just
I'm
it's
no I'm no moral guidance of this maybe theory. But interestingly enough, when you talk about boundaries, like I'll bring it back to my kids again, talking about like being silly. I'm, when I see my kids, I run up and give them hugs and kisses,
yeah.
and and we have some friends who they have one daughter, and they're a little, I don't know, they teach a little more about like having for kids, and it's important. I agree, and we're teaching our kids the same thing, that they even as kids have a choice to hug, to touch, to have that autonomy with their body. But like, I know this little girl, she's friends with mine. So we were over at their house and I see her and it was just like, come here. Like, I picked her up and she was like, ah, I was like, okay, whatever, little kid.
Yeah.
And my wife looked at me like, did you ask if you could pick her up? And I was like, no, like I saw
Yeah.
someone and I went to hug them. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I do. And then I
Right.
stop and think about it and say, yeah, like that's something that's empowered me, like being a
Right.
hugger, right?
Yeah, of
And
course.
you're a hugger too, and I know I might not have any more specific stories in this one with a kid, but yeah, let's just say there's a boundary, like a very real physical boundary that I often at as 34 years old still have to maintain myself from.
Yeah, right. Totally. I mean, it's just 2021 and you don't want to be looked at as a pervert, I guess.
Dude,
So,
I mean,
yeah.
dude, I
Yeah.
don't want to get into
No, it
that
makes
side of
sense,
things,
man. It makes
but
sense. I
yeah,
mean, I just went on an exercise run when I was back in I was in Tahoe last week, and a girlfriend of mine and I went on like a run around a track at an elementary school, and there was like elementary kids playing like on this track as well, like soccer practice or something. And I had to use the bathroom, and she went in and used the bathroom like easily, just went in and did it. And then
right.
I went in and I was like, wearing a tank top and like the bandana and just looked like fucking douchebag Julian walking into some elementary school. And the soccer coach was just like, "What are you doing?" And I was just like, "I'm just looking for the bathroom." He's like, "Yeah, the porta potties are out by the fence, dude." And I was just like, "Oh, like I I'm so sorry. I
Right,
must look awful right now." Like for no reason at all,
right, right,
just because of the nature of what's happening in that moment.
right.
And so I like walked and tried to find the porta potty, and there was no porta potty. So I wound up like coming back to the school and like sneaking in to the gymnasium to go use the bathroom. And I swear to God, dude, like my heart was pounding because I was like, if somebody sees me, or I'm not doing it, I'm just literally going to use the bathroom. But I
Right.
was like, but I felt like so like everything that I was doing was wrong. I was like, am I doing something wrong? Like I almost felt like I was doing something wrong, even though I
I know.
wasn't. I was just
Yeah,
using a bathroom facility in an elementary school. It's really weird, man. And I think nowadays we've been conditioned to feel even more weird about all that stuff, like
right,
hugging a little stranger kid. It's just like, oh shit, man, like that's just coming from my heart. But yeah, I
right,
guess I can
right.
see where like, but that's unfortunate that the other parents, I mean, like, you have to think about it the other way. Like if, maybe there are some creeps that are going to come and run up and squeeze one of your daughters, and you're going to,
Oh,
and it could
dude,
look nice, but who knows,
right.
you just don't know anymore, man, which is
Yeah, dude,
unfortunate.
absolutely. I think it's really funny because everyone always tells me, especially now that I have kids, like, why don't you have a kid show? Like, why are you not like the newest freaking Blues Clues or freaking
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers out
Yeah.
there? And it's like, I
Never
think
too
that in
late.
my head, I think it's because, like, again, the imagination thing, I try to lay it all out there. But personally, I definitely like operate comedically on like a more mature, like R X-rated like spectrum. So even the other day, someone was like, dude, you should have your own kid show. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna, yeah, Styles Bentley does kids. And they were like, no, no. And I was just like, yeah, Styles Bentley does kids. And they're like, no, absolutely not. You can't do that. And it's funny because, yeah, it is obviously with me and you, we're not like coming up to random kids in anywhere
Right.
and giving them hugs. Like
Right.
I'm talking about my kids and friends that they have that we
Right.
know well.
Of
Uh,
course.
and you're, just going to the bathroom. But I think, and I definitely agree with, you know, uh, body rights and choices and permissions and all those things. Absolutely. I think it's all for the better. But there is this, balance of when you do, I don't, I'm just a hugger. Like
Yeah, of course, man.
I just love love. I love the physical nature of things. Like I love hugging people. And I think and COVID I think has made people even more reserved to that, or people. Oh yeah, yeah. So again, I don't want anyone who is sensitive to their personal bubble to feel like we're threatening that, or that we don't believe you should have that, because
Right.
you obviously should. But it is strange for again, like talking about balance, talking about boundaries, and just using this as a very direct example of a physical boundary, and what's going on in the news with people who have exceeded their boundaries and permissions.
Right.
Yeah, it's obviously sensitive, it's touchy, but well,
But
now I'm
Brent,
going to
but
take it
but
from.
Styles Bentley does kids is gonna be the next hit on fucking Peacock in 2022. Honestly, man, it would be kind of funny to just like do a like to try to find a way to frame that in a way that would be like, you know, almost like satirizing the whole entire situation of like this PC culture, but
Right.
also like, in like doing the opposite of what would people would think that was, and actually being like a really beautiful show about exactly what
You
you're
know,
trying to do.
what's interesting is that I really have come to like, and I'm like you're all the actors in movies. I don't know. I've gotten more into like comedy, and I really like John Mulaney,
Yeah, he's
and
the
he
best.
did a show more recently, one of the streaming sites that was like a kids show for
Uh-huh.
adults kind of a thing. And I remember starting to watch it and thinking like I could copy something like this. Like this is
Yeah.
like it could be an inspiration. But and I love John Mulaney. I think he's a G. But I thought the show kind of fell flat. Like it just
Yeah.
didn't like it didn't. It was a kid show for adults. Like, and
Right.
adults want to see people do drugs and have sex and get killed,
Yeah.
and all
Yeah.
those sorts of things. So
Totally, man. Well,
yeah, yeah,
it's a valiant effort, at least, Shows
yeah.
are hard to make, so good on
Yeah.
him for trying.
Hey, folks, today our episode is brought to you in part by our good friends at Ladder Coffee. Head to laddercoffee.com and you can order beans directly from the brewer, as well as some of this beautiful cold brew. Locally owned and operated out of Spokane, Washington. Check it out, Ladder Coffee.
I'm jacked!
Yeah, well, good on you for being on episode, what does it say, 53, dude?
53, man. Yeah.
First episode I've watched.
Well, you're not even watching it, or are you? Are you watching it right now?
I am.
Are you?
I'm watching it from my third eye perspective.
Yeah. We've gone a whole year, man. It's pretty
No, I'm
it's
kidding.
pretty well.
I've listened to it, man. I've listened
No,
to you
you
guys.
haven't. Don't
Yeah,
lie.
I have. I've listened to the ones with people that I know on it,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I
yeah.
want to hear if they talk about me.
Yeah. There you go. That's all I ever listened to for it as well. Yeah, it's an interesting medium, man. It's a cool way to connect with people, and a cool thing to do with, with Alan. We don't know what the fuck we're doing, but
Yeah, dude. I think that's half the
it's
podcast.
fun.
Dude, everyone, and like this isn't like an insult. Everyone's got a fucking podcast,
Of
because I feel
course,
like it
yeah.
is such a great medium to just be like, to be fucking real,
Yeah.
to have some like I'm in the sustainability industry, and I've really dialed and worked for a startup. And so I am like fully dialed into LinkedIn and like the climate change and sustainability industries. And it's such here we're talking about boundaries again. It's so strange balancing like professionalism and passion and personality all at the same time, because it's like I'm so passionate about climate activism and sustainability. I'm so passionate about my startup and its potential, uh but then I'm this silly boy, And I think that's a struggle that I have. Like,
Mm-hmm.
where does the where does that balance of, okay, again, boundary, where does that boundary in the professional world, like, where's the line? Is
Yeah.
there a line? Because there definitely is. And then it's like, now this isn't just like for someone who's professional, let's just say, like, yeah, this is what feels like your well-being, more than like ranting on Facebook about whatever the fuck you want to rant about.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's yeah, another boundary I think that we have with technology now, and living as our like second person, living this, our digital selves and our like real selves, and yeah, trying to find that balance, and trying to break down boundaries, man. So I think, yeah, in all the breaking down we've done, like, there's more to go,
Totally, man.
yeah.
And your the work you do now, it must be, is it challenging to be Styles Bentley in that environment, or like what is it? Like walk me through what it is that you're even like doing nowadays in your
Yeah.
job.
So I am the chief product officer of a company called, yeah, welcome to the
Damn, boy, you're a
C-suite, baby.
chief.
Chief,
Shit.
got my whiteboard here for ideas. And and yeah, so it's for a startup called Sustain Six. It's a employee benefit program, employee sustainability benefits program, for companies who have missions surrounding climate and sustainability. They want to create that same passion with their employees and their culture. That if you're a company who's really putting themselves out there as fighting climate, the most important asset you have is your employees, and the best thing you could do to achieve your goals or your missions surrounding climate is to use that greatest asset as ambassadors of that, to create the leaders of sustainability through that medium, if you will, of your
Hmm.
employees. So my job has been, uh, creating the working with the CEO to create this concept and to design the product that houses it, and and creates that experience for the user, and then managing the developers and designers, to take our concept and our prototypes, and to build a new product with it. So that's the creative side. And then of course there's, from a product standpoint, I also, manage client expectations, business development, stakeholders. I mean, I really wear pretty much every hat that can be worn. Granted, we're a tiny little startup looking for a big customer or someone who
Yeah.
wants to throw down some investment. So, anyways, yeah. So it's been awesome, like very passionate about what I do, and I've really learned something about myself, actually. I don't know, maybe we can relate it back to all of this last hour of conversation, but uh I left my job in the middle of the pandemic. Disagreements with I was there for 4 years, and my CEO I was working with just, I think he's a great dude, just we were done. I was done working for him. um and let's just say I was unemployed for a lot longer than I thought I was. And I took a job because I love building science. I love design, buildings, architecture, climate, sustainability. I took a job as a HVAC technician, and and it was a great experience. Highly recommend the trades if that's some. I love working with my hands and building. I think that's why I love art and design. But I came away from it because as a technician, you were the like fixer, which was good. I like being a problem solver. But what I realized is that I'm a good problem solver, but I'm a really good creator. Like,
Mm.
and so now working with this startup and really creating concepts, creating prototypes, uh, inspiring them, and then inspiring kind of the designers and developers to like take those and to use their own expertise to grow that into something even bigger and better. is so rewarding. And I feel like I kind of jumped and skipped a step. I bring it back to, and this is maybe a little pompous, but I remember in design school learning about Chihuly, right? And being in the Seattle area and
Chihuly
watching, you know,
glass, right? Chihuly,
yeah,
like the
Dale
glass
Chihuly, the glass artist.
artist.
And so, you know, but learn, you know, he hasn't blown glass in 40 years, you know. He sketches and draws and sits on a director's chair and says, make this, and the artists go to work and make that. And I think that, like, I'm not relating myself to Dale Chihuly, but I really find myself doing well in kind of that position. Again, being kind of the 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 light bulb, but then I think I always wanted to do everything. Like as a creative, like being younger, it was like, "Oh, I had this idea, I'm gonna be a painter. Oh, I had this idea, I'm gonna be a musician. Oh, I had this
Yeah,
idea." But I think it's
right.
been really great being able to like have these ideas, create concepts, give it to someone who is like a UX designer, and for
Yeah,
them to like elaborate and to create something. It's just been
that
such a
must be cool,
fun
man.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
it's
think
all
I've really
concentrated.
Right, right. And I kind of fell into this as an advisor for the company on the kind of building science side of things. And the CEO was just kind of like, you know, what do you want to do in the company? I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm willing to, I just want to get my foot in the door. And he was like, hey, man, you should read this book, you know, about product leadership and about, you know, product management and stuff like that. And it really, I feel like I am becoming more the designer that I wanted to be and kind of this artistic director, although there is a little more of like an administrative, like business side to what I do too. But I am definitely, I don't know, we'll see where I'm at a few years from now and 10 years from now and whatnot. But after going through this strange experience of unemployment, like scratching to get back to zero, you know, to find a balance, to make sure the family's taken care of, to getting a foot in the door in a really cool startup I'm passionate about. Um, I don't, you know, I really hate saying everything happens for a reason because I think it's more of just um, excellent coincidence and randomness, but it's like I can't help but to feel like that patterns are evolving from my passions, and it's only me who can kind of let more passion out to saturate the positions I'm in to elevate and direct me to the next step. And so I'm trying, right? I'm getting excited about like even the other day, you know, I was like, I need to be on my grind. Like I got this job. I need like a fucking podcast. I need a fucking YouTube channel. What can I be doing more? Like, and
Hmm.
it was like, no, like be focused now on this thing. Like focus on it, you know, really make that, you know, and again, I think there's a whole fucking balance to it all, but focus on this and see now where it takes you. So I think that's been, I, I guess to now that we're probably coming towards the end of this whole conversation, I think that is my growth is not setting boundaries, but guidelines, right? So you're not holding yourself in to like an ultimatum, but you're still directing your vision in the moment to where you hope to go. So you're not living in where you want to be, but you're focusing the moment on that journey. So I don't know, maybe that's good. Maybe it's not, but that's what I guess I'm doing.
That's probably the most responsible thing I've ever heard you say in my entire life. That's awesome, man. It's super
Yeah.
cool, dude. It's such an obvious comment on your growth, man, and just where you're at, and it's cool, dude. Like I wonder like what your younger self would think about you now, and what you would like maybe like what would you even tell yourself
I don't
young
know,
like to do?
like if
you could give yourself a piece of advice when you were younger, when we were at our ultimate rage level of Julian and Brent, what would you like? What would you say anything, or would you like? I don't know. I have kind of my own opinion on this right now, and I'm curious if you have like a thought on like.
I don't know.
First of all, would you have anticipated that you would just have said what you just said?
No.
Yeah.
I don't know, man, because
yeah, neither do I.
As a kid, like, I think I had such a fucking like Saved by the Bell mentality of what life was like. Or I think, what movie was it, like Orange County, where he was like, you go to high school, you go to college, you get married, like that's life. Like I think that until I was like maybe 21, 2, 3, like maybe more like 20. I mean, that's what I thought. So I feel like when I was I always had that boundary set up, and I think that might be another reason why I didn't become the bohemian in New York trying to like find a creative direction, because I had these boundaries of like, you got to go to college, you got to get a job, you got to have a family, which isn't bad. I love, actually, I mean, family
the best
is
thing that could have ever happened to you.
The best, like family. We talk about tribes, like once you have kids and a wife, and obviously things can go all sorts of different ways, but hopefully that is your fucking tribe. That is your epicenter, dude. And then you build your tribe around that more. But yeah, looking back on it to myself, you know what I'd probably say? Party on, Bruce.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Dude, I think that's party on, man. Like,
you found a way, man. You found a way to do it. And like I said in the very beginning of this conversation, like there's nobody that I actually like envy the position of being a parent as right now other than you. I'm like, I watch you do it and I'm like, wow, man, like you've really figured out a way to fuse your the best versions of yourself as a kid back into your kids' lives. And I'm sure, again, it's hard as fuck all the time.
Yeah.
But,
absolutely.
But it's really cool, man. It's really admirable. And, you know, I don't know. I as I was thinking about that question I was asking you, it's just like, I almost don't want to like say something to my younger self. I want more of my younger self to say something to me now, you know, to like remind myself of like who I am, because not that he was right or wrong. He was just like, I don't know, man. Like we just grow up and we get frazzled by life. You know, we get so sidetracked and so filled up with like reference for everything else that comes into our lives, and it stresses us out, man. Like I mean,
just look at what we're doing right now. We're like telling our story, but we're like kind of digging into it a little bit to like justify some of it, but a little bit to just like, I mean, just the exercise that we just did is like just kind of weird, right? Just obscure that we're sitting here talking about our experience and justifying it. And like it's like at the end of the day, and if you just listen to this for 90 minutes, you just wasted all of your time that you could have been exploring and living your life. Hopefully you're learning from Uncle Brent and Julian here that a couple dipshits can open and expand, you know, boundaries for people. And it's one of those things, the influence, right? I think it comes back to the desire to do it all. Wasn't to be in charge, wasn't to be like in power, but it was to be influential. And there is a difference, right? Like we didn't want to have power over people. We were just inspiring them to dance. Like, hey, if you're going to come over here, fucking drop it down and boogie, because that's what we're doing. Like, lose the self-consciousness. So, so anyways, it's, an interesting, you know, we're all just floating, man. And it's like you kind of touch down at certain points and have these thoughts, and then you float over to the next spot, and we're all just flowing through the winds of time, man.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. Well,
it's fucking awesome, isn't it?
It's the best.
We're
man.
alive.
I know. It's
You're alive.
It's alive. it's great, man. And I couldn't be more thrilled that even though like multiple years can go by where we don't like really see too much of each other, it's like the friendship with you and with our close friends outside of you and me, it's like it just picks up. We don't need to check in. We don't need, I mean, maybe we should more often because that's just kind of a nice thing to do. But it's interesting, man, when you get older and, just, I don't know, you could create time for it. We all have time every once in a while to just make a call. But
Dude,
the point is, like, we don't necessarily need to, because we hop right back in and it's as if no time has passed.
Like literally, just for your listeners understand, it's like Julian texted me yesterday, like, want to be on the podcast? I was like, sure. It texted this morning. All right. Like, we like got on, we haven't talked to each other on the phone besides like text for months probably, right?
Yeah.
But,
I
like,
haven't seen
Julian
you for...
times on, I'm like, what's up, man? You're like, just don't say anything. We're going to press record. Like, so literally, like, the start of this podcast is the beginning of mine and Julian's conversation that we haven't had for 3 months. And I assume that everyone listening feels the naturalness of it. So yeah, and that's the importance of the relationships and the tribe that you create, man. Like, I hate to like feel like I'm preaching on it or something like that, but I'll say that, I really think that, coming from an idea of like climate and sustainability, coming from an idea of like mindfulness and that sort of things, like all these things like combine back to the fact that there's like 8 billion plus people on the planet right now. I think they estimate that there's been like 50 or 60 like billion people that have been in existence on the earth. Like we're so insignificant and so pointless that the thing that actually gives our life meaning is the relationships with other people, and the fact that they love you and that you love them. That makes your life special. Like, that's what makes living special. And so having like a friend that I've known since fucking Indian guides, because we definitely weren't like Boy Scout caliber kind of kids. We were Indian guide kids.
Which I think is probably canceled nowadays.
Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, we've even had our own breakup, and gotten back together, and have had those. To have a friend like you, and ultimately like our kind of crew of dudes, the Chapistry, right? I mean, is so fucking unique. I think we all know that it's special, but I mean, we have a really, like you said, who knows if we'd be the people we are today if it wasn't for each other, but it's a special thing, man. And you and Alan are just like taking that special thing, and all your podcasts and all your fucking Valentine's Day and Christmas specials and all the writing you've done, all the acting you've done, like, you guys have really taken the essence of that and used it as like a creative project. And so anyone who listens to this, or you're an Alan Stone fan and you've seen that stuff, like, Alan is, he is Alan Stone, he's the writer, the creator, he deserves the accolades for the stuff that he's presented. But, it all has been inspired through like this tribe. And that is not to take one thing away from Alan Stone at all. He's a fucking G, dude. Like, he's my boy, best friends, But and anything you've created, anything I've created, like, it is because of this tribe, man.
Totally,
and
man.
So maybe that's the message to throw out there. It's not about us like gushing about our best friends and our tribe because we love each other like a bunch of sissy boys, but it's to go find yours, man. Like, have your introvertedness, have your focus on becoming excellent and a master at something, but take the time to let it go, to open your boundaries, to find the people who you want to be like, who are like you. Find your tribe. It's never too fucking late, man. Just find relationships, man, and hug people after they give you permission. Hug them and love people, man, and love your family and have a family if that's your choice. and find Julian and pay him for his what do you have a Patreon page, Julian, or anything? Like find love and pay Julian. He works really fucking hard, dude. Like there's nobody. You've given me some love, so I'll give you a little love back, man. There's nobody. If I'm the creative one that Julian's inspired from, I am inspired by Julian every day by the dedication and hard work that he has put in to become a master and fucking excellent at his craft. And obviously that's something that's never going to end. That'll be your journey, man, to continue mastering and finding excellence. And so yeah, I think I'm getting all my conclusive things. I'm trying to pull it all in together here. Well, but the only Julian, man, I fucking love you, dude.
I fucking love you too, man. I appreciate you saying all those kind things, and yeah, man, I feel the exact same way about you. So it goes without saying, man. Like we don't need the world to know how much we love each other. They can tell just by listening to this podcast, man.
Yeah,
if they listen at all.
Yeah,
but the only thing in conclusion that you can do is the day is done chant from. We should preface this by saying that Brent and I, when we were in like 5th, 6th, 4th,
no, it was like
3rd,
1st grade. Dude.
Oh, really?
Like,
super young, elementary school. Brent and I were in Indian guides, which I don't think they do anymore because I think it's racially insensitive, and I don't know. Like I remember Kevin Iverson's dad, who's Polish, would like wear a headdress to these like meetups, and he would like get us all together and like build tomahawks and dream catchers and shit. And it was Indian guys. They made a movie about it with JTT and Chevy Chase called Man in the House.
Tim Allen.
Tim Allen. That's right. So we're not Tim Allen. Tim Allen was Home Improvement, dude. Home Improvement. I'm talking about Man of the House, Chevy Chase, dude. Chevy Chase and JTT. Chevy Chase was his dad or his stepdad.
All right. I'll go with it.
We'll fact check it.
Yeah, you're the movie man. You're the IMDb whiz.
I think I'll be sad if I'm wrong, but I think that's true. And so yeah, Brent and I and many of our other friends who started the Chapus Wu with us were part of this as well. And it was a great thing for us youngsters. Again, I don't think it exists anymore and we were too dumb to be Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts because we didn't actually have real skills. We just wanted to fly kites and fucking giggle at each other.
Get a snack at the end.
But there was always a chant at the end of the night, at the end of a group meeting, and we would all kind of like hold hands and do this prayer together. And I would love Brent to send off this podcast with this chant. Go for it, man.
All right. Day is done, gone the sun, from the earth, from the hills, from the sky. All is well, safely rest. Gone the sun. Now and forever, may the spirits be with you. That was a bow and arrow.
Oh, so good, man. Love you, Styles. Love you, Brent. Love you, Sultan. Love you, all the names you have. But I just love you, Brent Loya, man.
I love you, Julian.
You're my best friend, dude. Thanks for
latest. Gavalanes.
Oh, man. What a blast. Thanks for doing this with me, dude.
All right, bro. Love you, dude.
Love you, man.
Oh, boo-boo, did you just make it to the end of the video? Yes, you did. Do you want to see more videos just like this one, huh? Do you?
Well, then head over to patreon.com/Live at the Lodge, where you can support the How Good's of this podcast, as well as the entire Live at the Lodge family.
Yep, yeah, you're going to get exclusive merch, personalized shout-out videos. Me and Jules, we're going to show up at your house and baptize your nephew, huh? Check it out, patreon.com/Live at the Lodge.